10-year-old boy steps into the frost, raises his hand, and reality breaks. Beams of pure energy freeze mid-strike, warships twist into glowing dust, and the sky falls silent like it's holding its breath. No screams, no battle, just one impossible child rewriting the rules of the universe. But what happened next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. First, let's go back to where it all began. The lab was silent, save for the low hum of gravitic stabilizers and the slow pulse of biostat displays lining the chamber. Dr. Nemeris Vole stood frozen, bathed in cold violet light from the analysis console. The boy's genome twisted across the screen in an endless spiral, each frame a revelation, each nucleotide an insult to everything he thought immutable. Evolution, as defined by the Ilari, was governed by pace, a slow waltz across millennia. But this was a sprint, a desperate, screaming sprint through locked doors nature had never meant to open so soon. Vole's hands trembled as he expanded the neural scan overlay. The boy's occipital cortex, once atrophied and inert, now glowed with dense new growth, not scar tissue, not prosthetic augmentation, original neurogenesis, spontaneous, directed, intelligent. No known species, Ilari included, could overwrite congenital damage like this. Yet Subject 92X had done so in weeks. And worse, the patterns were not only reparative, but generative. Entire neural maps had formed that had no analog in any prior Homo sapiens scan. They weren't just healing, they were building something. Vole stepped back, breath caught in his throat, pupils dilated with instinctive horror. He remembered his early field work on Vanth Prime, where a fungal hive intelligence had manipulated its hosts into mass suicide to propagate spores. That had been terrifying. This was worse. This was clean. No external invasion, no pathogen, just a human boy, becoming something else. Rylan approached from across the lab, his usual smirk replaced with unease. "You're saying he evolved new senses?" "No," Vole snapped, voice tight. "I'm saying something inside him evolved the idea of sight." He gestured to the accelerating rate of epigenetic shifts. This wasn't Darwinian. It wasn't Lamarckian. It was deliberate. He activated the holographic chronostream, projecting human development over the past 10,000 years. The curve was supposed to be a gentle slope. Instead, it jagged upward in recent decades like a cliff face. Cognition, reflexes, even mitochondrial density, everything was climbing, converging. And in the middle of that spike, Jacob Halley. Vole's throat constricted. He whispered the word before he knew he had formed it. Singularity. He had spent a lifetime cataloging the rise and fall of species across galaxies. But now, for the first time, he feared he wasn't watching an anomaly. He was watching the spark that lit the match, and something old or new, was holding the torch. The descent to Earth was slow, surgical. Vole had overridden 3 layers of Dominion clearance to touch down on Terran soil, each unauthorized step pressing harder against centuries of ingrained Ilari restraint. But his species' doctrines of non-interference shattered the moment he saw the molecular lattice of synaptic gel rendered in crayon. It had taken the Dominion 80 years of neural research to stabilize that compound. Jacob Halley had drawn it perfectly beside a smiling sun and a farmhouse. The boy was slight, pale, unremarkable by Earth standards. Brown hair, quiet eyes. Yet when Vole first saw him through the farmhouse window, watching the wind move through the wheat, he felt something primordial tighten in his chest. Not fear, reverence, as if the fabric of nature had wrapped itself around this child and whispered, "This one is different." Carter Halley greeted him with military caution. The man's face bore the silent creases of combat, his handshake firm and unflinching. But beneath that, Vol sensed the weight of something deeper. Exhaustion, perhaps, or unspoken awe. Carter didn't fear Jacob, but he didn't understand him either. "He doesn't talk much about the drawings," Carter muttered, handing Vol a thick sketch pad. "Started after the lightning storm. Took me 6 hours to find him. When I did, his eyes weren't cloudy anymore, and he looked at me like he'd just met me for the first time." Vol flipped through the pages, each one more impossible than the last. Not abstract. Schematics. Precision that no 10-year-old should possess. One chart mapped stellar drift patterns that hadn't occurred yet. Another depicted orbital vectors around a trinary system whose very existence the Ilari had only just confirmed. But it wasn't until Vol reached the final sketch that his hands trembled. A double helix, twisted, lithe, alive. Not a child's doodle, a record. Codons unraveling mid-replication, shifting in real time. Embedded annotations written in an untranslatable glyph system that flickered with recursive logic. Jacob hadn't just seen evolution. He was speaking it. That night, as Jacob slept, heart slow, breath steady beneath a hand-stitched quilt, Vol initiated a stealth scan. The readings made no sense. The boy's DNA was unfixed, caught mid-transition. Nucleotide chains shimmered in unstable alignment, rewriting themselves as if in conversation with an unseen author. There was no viral agent, no mutagen, just will. And then, from deep within Jacob's neocortex, a pulse rippled outward, a silent, focused burst of energy that bypassed the electromagnetic spectrum entirely. It wasn't a flare. It wasn't a signal flare. It was a ping, a call, and somewhere something was listening. The warships arrived in silence, casting shadows across the Montana plains as if the sky itself had been split open. They didn't announce themselves. Ilari fleets never did. They didn't need to. Their presence was declaration enough. 30 vessels, each carved from obsidian alloys and humming with gravitational potential, hung above Earth's stratosphere like judges at a trial already decided. And yet, down below, in a simple farmhouse surrounded by whispering fields of wheat, the epicenter of galactic paranoia was a 10-year-old boy clutching a blanket. Vol's comlink flared. Ryland's voice came jagged and breathless. "They've locked Earth into a planetary quarantine grid. They think the signal was a threat assessment, strategic targeting data." "It wasn't," Vol hissed. "It was a seed transmission, non-linear, symbolic, recursive. Ryland, it wasn't meant for us. Try telling that to the High Conclave. They've issued a preemptive elimination order." Vol closed the channel, fingers tightening into a fist. This wasn't fear anymore. It was fury. Later that night, when Jacob stirred, the farmhouse had gone cold. No wind, no hum of insects, just the sterile stillness of a world being watched. Vol sat by the hearth, its fire long since faded, when the boy entered, barefoot, eyes reflecting more starlight than the sky outside offered. Jacob's voice was quiet, yet final. "They'll try to stop it." "Stop what?" He tilted his head. "The pattern. But they can't. It's already begun. The lattice has formed." Vol's throat tightened. "What lattice?" The boy walked past him and opened the door, stepping into the frozen night. His breath fogged the air as he looked upward, not at the stars, but through them. "There's a rhythm beneath things, beneath physics. You called it math. It's more than that. It's intention." Vol followed, boots crunching over frost-hardened soil. He looked skyward and tried futilely to grasp what the boy saw. Nothing, just stars. But Jacob kept speaking, as if he were translating something from a language no throat could form. "Earth was chosen because of its chaos. Too much war, too much pain. But that made us porous. That's why we could hear it. And you? Vol asked, nearly a whisper. I didn't evolve. I resonated. Then, finally, Vol heard it. Not with ears, but with cognition. A pattern humming inside the silence. Not alien, but impossibly familiar. A blueprint encoded into suffering, curiosity, and time itself. The boy turned, eyes impossibly deep. We're not what they fear. We're what comes after fear. And Vol understood. This wasn't divergence from nature. It was its final chord. The sky fractured with colorless light as the Alari fleet initiated firing protocols. No declaration, no escalation. To them, this was sterilization, a procedure. Their beams weren't forged for war, but for erasure, efficient and indifferent. A flash, and all that remained of the wheat field was a scorched chasm stretching dozens of meters wide. The farmhouse groaned in protest against the shock wave, window panes shattering inward like glass lungs exhaling. But the child was untouched. Vol stood alone in the dirt, arms wide, unshielded. His body trembled, not from fear, but from the resonance he now felt vibrating within his marrow. It was the pattern, alive, unfolding like a code awakening inside his biology. He knew, without needing to think, that this moment would ripple forever. The second beam shimmered into existence above Jacob, hanging like a judgment blade. But it stopped, mid-air, not slowed, not deflected, frozen. Time itself thickened, congealed. Sound dropped out. The wind died. Color became memory. Gravity ceased its pull. The universe paused. Jacob lifted one hand, not in defiance, but in effortless alignment with the unseen. His small fingers flexed, not with power, but with permission, as though granting the cosmos the right to become something new. Vol gasped. The pattern wasn't technology, it wasn't a weapon. It was syntax, older than energy, a metacognitive key. And Jacob wasn't channeling it. He was it. A living harmonization between flesh and principle. Above them, the fleet began to deform, not explode, not disintegrate. Unthread. Ships stretched and unraveled, their molecular structures diffusing into cascading spirals of light. No screams, no alarms. Just the quiet, devastating beauty of dissolution without pain. They didn't vanish. They were repositioned, flung like pollen on a quantum breeze across the void. The silence persisted. Jacob swayed, then fell. Vol caught him before his body hit the frost. The boy was warm, too warm. Energy shimmered faintly across his skin, veins pulsing with rhythms that no longer obeyed biology. They tried to erase us, Jacob murmured, voice barely audible. You didn't. Vol couldn't speak. He simply held him, kneeling in the ash, the scorched earth now still beneath a sky too wide to hold what had just occurred. Jacob's final words curled into the air like breath crystallizing into prophecy. It's starting. Everywhere. And as Vol looked up into the stars, he no longer saw silence. He saw awakening.